but at his party took a dip into the Triveni, the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, the chief of the sacred place, and bowed their head to the Sheikh Bharadwaja. Bharata reverently received his orders and blessings, and protesting himself made much supplication, accompanied by expert guides and taking the whole host along with him. He proceeded on his journey with the thought directed towards Chitrakuta. Holding Sri Rama's friend Guha by the hand, he walked along like the very incarnation of love. He had no shoes and no umbrella on his head, and his love, self-discipline, and accompanied by expert guide and taking the whole host along with him, he proceeded his journey towards Chitrakuta. Holding Sri Rama's hand, he walked along like the very incarnation of love. He had no shoes and no umbrella over his head, and his love, self-discipline, austerity, and piety were unfazed. He asked his friend Guha to give an account of the wandering of the Lakshmana, Sri Rama, and Sita, while Guha narrated the same in soft accent. When he saw the spots where Sri Rama had rested and the trees under which he had halted, the emotion within his breast could not be repressed. The god who beheld his condition rained down flower. The earth grew soft and the road became pleasant. The clouds afforded him shade all along with a delightful and the excellent breeze kept blowing. The journey was not so agreeable to Sri Rama as it proved to be for Bharata. The numberless beings, both animate and inanimate, that saw the Lord or were seen by the Lord in their turn, had been rendered fit for the highest estate. The sight of the Bharata now finally rid them out of the disease of the transmigration. This was no great thing for Bharata, whom Sri Rama ever cherished in his heart. Even they who utter the name of the Rama only once in this world not only reach the other shore themselves, but are also able to take others across. As for Bharata, he is dearly loved by Sri Rama and is his younger brother too. No wonder then that the journey should be delightful to him. Siddhas, a class of the celestial beings, saints and the great sages, observed thus and rejoiced at heart to behold Bharata. Indra, the chief of the gods, was filled with anxiety when he saw Bharata's power. The world is good to the good and vile for the vile. He said to his preceptor, the sage Brahaspati, something must be done, my lord, to prevent the meeting between Rama and Bharata. Sri Rama is scrupulous by nature and is won by love, while Bharata is an ocean of affection. What has already been accomplished does threaten to be undone. Therefore, finding out some stratagem, let us use it as a remedial measure. Hearing his words, the preceptor of the god smiled and realized that, though endowed with the thousand eyes, Indra was really blind, lacked discriminate. He he said, "Oh, if anyone practices deception of the devotee of the Sri Rama, Lord of Maya, it requires on the artificer himself. O King of the God, last time we did something knowing that it had Sri Rama's tacit approval, but by resorting to some underhand means, this time we are sure to meet with disaster. Listen, O Lord of the God, it is Sri Rama's nature not to be angry at any offense against himself, but he who sins against his devotee surely consumes in fire of his wrath. The story is well known both in the world as well as in the Vedas. The Sikh Durvasa knows this glorious trait of Sri Rama's character. Who is there no who loved Rama as Bharata's love? Who repeats Rama's name where Rama repeats the name of Bharata? Never harbor in your mind, O Lord of the immortals, even the thought of frustrating the purpose of devotee of Sri Rama, the chief of Raghunath. For the same will bring you infamy in this world, sorrow in the next, and series of woe in your day-to-day life. Hear our advice, O King of the gods, a devotee supremely dear to Sri Rama. He is gratified through service rendered to his devotee and bears great enmity to those who are hostile to them. Even though the Lord is alike to all without either love or anger, and received neither sin nor virtue, neither merit nor demerited, even though he has made fate the ruling factor in this world, so that one reaps what one sows. Yet, according as one possesses the heart of the devotee or an unbeliever, he appears to be impartial or hostile in his dealing. Though devoid of attributes, unattached, free from pride, and even unchanged, Sri Rama has assumed a form with attributes yielding to the love of his devotee. Sri Rama has ever respected the wishes of his devotee. The Vedas and Puranas, as well as saints and God, can bear testimony to this. Bearing this in mind, give up perversity and cherish ideal love for Bharta's feet. Sri Rama's devotees are actively engaged doing good to others, shares the sorrow of others, and are compassionate by nature. And Bharata is the very creased jewel of devotee, therefore be not afraid of him, O ruler of God. The Lord is true to his love, word, and friend of the gods, while Bhartas obeys Sri Rama's order. You are feeling uneasy only because you are dominated by self-interest. Bharta is not to blame at all. It is your ignorance which is responsible for your uneasiness. The chief of the god Indra was overjoyed at heart to hear these valuable words of the heavenly preceptor, and his depression of spirit was gone. The Lord of Celestial therefore rained down flowers and gladly began to extol Bharata's noble disposition. In this way, Bharata went on his ways while Sek and Siddhas were filled with envy at the sight of his condition. Whenever he heaved a long sigh with the word Rama on his lips, it seemed as if love overflowed on all sides. Even adamant and the stones melted at his words. The love of the citizens was beyond description. Halting at one place on this side, the party arrived on the bank of the Yamuna, and Bharata's eyes were filled with tears as he gazed on its dark water, which reminded him of Sri Rama's swarthy form. At the sight of the lovely stream that possessed the same hue as the person of the Sri Rama chief of Raghunath, Bharata and his party were plunged into the ocean of grief and on account of separation from Sri Rama and were saved from the drowning only by the boarding the bark of discretion. That day they halted on the bank of the Yamuna. Everyone was provided with comforts according to the occasion. In course of the night in the river, boats of untold variety came from all the ghats. At daybreak, the whole party crossed the river in a single trip. Everyone was pleased with the service rendered by the Nishada chief in this behalf. After performing their ablutions and going their head to the river Yamuna, the two brothers Bharata and Shatrugna resumed their journey with the Lord of Nishada. At the head of the line is chosen vehicle travel the principal Sikhs, Vamadeva Vashishta, and so on, followed by the royal host. Next followed the two royal brothers, both on foot. Their ornaments, costume, and style of dress were all of the very simplest. They were accompanied by their servants, friends, and the minister's sons, and went with their thoughts fixed on Lakshmana, Sita, and Lord of Raghu. They lovingly saluted each and every place where Sri Rama had either encamped or rested a while. Hearing the news, the man and the woman who lived by the roadside left their household work and ran after the royal travellers. And having seen their comely form and affection, they all rejoiced on attaining the reward of their life. One woman lovingly said to another, "Friend, can they be the Rama and Lakshmana or not? Their age, constitution, complexion, and comeliness of the form are the same, dear companion. Their amiability and affection are also similar, and their gait too resembles that of the Rama and Lakshmana. Only their dress is not the same, and they are not accompanied by Sita, my friend, and an army complete in its for four limbs, that is, horses and foot, elephants and carrots, is marching before them. Moreover, they do not wear a cheerful countenance, and their heart is heavy with sorrow. This difference makes me doubt their identity with Rama and Lakshmana, O friend." Her argument appealed to the rest of the women. They said, "There is no so clever as she," applauding the letter and admiring the truth of her remarks. Another Only the rest not the same. They are not accompanied by Sita, my friend, and any one woman lovingly said to their friends, can they be the Rama and Lakshmana or not? Their age, constitution, complexion, and comeliness form are the same. Their companion, their amiability and affection are also similar, and the gait too resembles that of the Rama and Lakshmana. Only their dress is not the same, and they are not accompanied by Sita, my friend, and an army complete of its four limbs. It is a horse, her foot, elephants, and carrots is marching before them. Moreover, they do not wear a cheerful countenance, and their heart is heavy with sorrow. This difference makes me doubt their identity with Rama and the Lakshmana friend. Her argument appealed to the rest of the women. They said there is none so clever as she, applauding the latter and admiring the truth of her remarks. Another woman spoke in sweet accent. She lovingly narrated the whole episode as to how the festivities in connection with Sri Rama installation had been obstructed. She then began to praise Bharta's amiability, affection, genuine disposition, and good luck. Journeying on foot, living on foot, and relinquishing the sovereignty bestowed by his father, Bharta is proceeding to pursue the chief of the Raghu line to return. Who can equal Bharta today? Bharta's brotherly affection, devotion, and conduct dispels the woes and evil of those who talk or hear of them. Whatever may be said with regard to them, dear father, will be quite inadequate. It is no wonder that the brother of Rama should be like that. All of us who have seen Bharata and his younger brother have become praiseworthy among women. Hearing of his virtue and seeing his forlorn states, they lamented. Surely he is not a fit son for such a vile mother as Kaikeyi. Someone said, the queen mother is not blame at all. All this has been accomplished by God, who is so favorably disposed to us. Of what account are we, while women exclude both from secular and the Vedic rites and impure by birth as well as by doing, who dwell in accursed region woodland and its dredged village and are a worst of our class, that that we should have such a sigh with which is a reward of great religious merit. There was a similar rejoicing and wonder in every village. It seemed as if a celestial trees had sprung up in desert. At the sight of Bharta, the good fortune of the people by the roadside manifested itself as though by the will of the Providence Prayaga had been brought within easy reach of the people of Shimla. Hearing his own praises as well as of the Sri Rama's virtues, Bharta went on his ways, thinking of Sri Rama whenever he happened to see holy water, he bathed in them, and whenever he caught sight of the hermitage or a temple, he made obeisance to it, making in his heart only one boon, that is devotion to the lotus feet of the Sita and Rama. Whomever he met, he a Kola or any other foresters, or even if he were an anchorite, a religious student, a recluse or hermit, he would salute him and inquire in which part of the forest were Lakshmana, Rama, and Videha's daughter. They told them all the news of the Lord, and at the sight of Bharata obtained the reward of their life. Those persons who said they had seen the lords doing well were counted as dear as Sri Rama and Lakshmana themselves. Thus, in polite phrase, he would make inquiries from all and hear the story of Sri Rama's forest life. Halting the day in a suitable place, he resumed his journey early next morning, invoking the Lord of Raghu. Just like Bharata, everyone who accompanied him longed for the sight of Sri Rama. Auspicious omens occurred to everyone. They had happy thronging in their eyes and arms. Bharata and his whole host rejoiced at the thought that they would be able to see Sri Rama, and the sting of their sorrow would come to an end. Each indulged in his own fancy, and all went intoxicated with the wine of love. Their limbs were getting out of the control, the leg tottered, and they spoke words in an incoherent way. Due to emotion, Sri Rama's friend Guha presently pointed to Bharata, the tree jewel of the mountain Kamatgiri, which was naturally charming and the vicinity of which on the bank of the river Payasni dwelt in the two brothers Sri Rama and Lakshmana, along with Sita. Catching sight of the mountain, all fell protest on the ground with the cries of glory to Sri Rama and life of the Janaka's daughter. The royal host was so overwhelmed with emotion as though the chief of Raghuline had turned back towards Ayodhya. Martha's love at that time was more than Shesha, the thousand-headed serpent king, could describe. It is an unapproachable to the poet as the bliss of the absorption into Brahma to those who are tainted by egotism and mindness. Being all overpowered by love, the chief of the Raghuline they had covered a distance of only 4 miles by the time the sun set. Perceiving a suitable site and water close by, they halted, and at the close of the night and bestowed of Sri Rama resumed his journey. There Sri Rama awoke while it was yet dark. Sita saw in a dream that very night as if Bharata had come with his retinue, and that his body was tormented by agony of separation from his lord. All who had accompanied him were sad at heart, miserable and afflicted, while her mother-in-law she found changed in appearance. On hearing of Sita's dream, Sri Rama's eyes filled with tears, and he who rids others of their sorrow becomes sorrowful. This dream Lakshmana bond no good. Somebody will break terrible bad news. Saying so, he took his bath with his brother and worshipping in the enemy of the Tripura, Lord Shiva paid his respects to holy men. After adoring the god and reverencing the hermit, he sat down gazing on the north. There was dust in the air, and hosts of birds and the beasts had taken a flight in panic and were making their way of the Lord's hermitage, says Tulsidas. He stood up when he saw that there wondered in his heart what could be the reason. Presently the Kolas and Kirtas came and told him all the news. When he heard the delightful words, he felt overjoyed at heart. A thrill ran through his body and his eyes, and resembles the eternal lotus, says Tulsidas, filled with the tears of affection. Sita's lord became anxious the very next moment. What can be the reason of the Bharata's arrival? Then somebody came and spoke to him thus. He has with him no small army, complete of its four limbs at her foot, horse, elephants in the carriage. Hearing this, Sri Rama felt much disturbed. On the one hand, there was his father's commands. On the other, his regards to his younger brother Bharata. Realizing Bharata's disposition in his heart, the Lord found no propositions to fix his mind upon. Then he consoled himself with the thought that Bhatta was submissive, good, and the reasonable. Lakshmana saw that the Lord was troubled at heart and spoke what prudence demanded on the occasion. I make bold, my Lord, to say something unasked, but a servant cease to be impertinent if the impertinence is not importunate. Cease to be the importunate. Sri Ramayana. My you, my master, are the jewel of the all-wise, that I, your servant, tell you my own mind. You, my master, are loving by nature and clueless of the heart and storehouse of the amiability and affection. You love and trust everyone and know all to be just like yourself. Fools given to the pleasure of the sense are seized with infatuation on attaining power and reveal their true nature. Bharata was righteous, good, and the wise, and his devotion to the Lord's feet is known to the whole world. But now that he has attained Sri Rama's your positions as the ruler of the Ayodhya, even he has transgressed the bound of the rightness, finding an adverse situation and knowing that you are alone in the forest. This valiant the wicked brother has protested an evil design, and after making due preparation, has come to make his sovereignty secure. Planning all sort of the wicked schemes, the two brothers have collected an army and marched here. If they had no ill intentions and roughly at heart, who should like to bring carrots, horses, and elephants? But why should one blame Bharata for nothing when we know that anyone in this world would be driven made on attaining sovereignty? The moon god committed adultery with the wife of his guru, the sage Brahaspati, while Nausha mounted a palki borne by the Brahmans, and there was none so vile as King Vena, an enemy of the established usage as well as the Vedic injunctions. King Shastrabahu, Indra, the lord of the celestial, and King Trishanku, father of the Harishchandra, which of these was not brought into the disrepute by the intoxication of the kingly power? Bharta was disrepute. Bharta has resorted to the right expedients, for one should leave no trace of one's enemy or debt in any case. But he has made one mistake in that he has despised Sri Rama yourself has fallen, and he will realize his mistake with Vinigency today when he beholds Sri Rama, your indigent face on the battlefield. Even as he said so, he forgot his love of the property, and the tree of his bellicose spirit burst into the flowers in the shape of the whole creations. Adoring the Lord's feet and placing the dust on his head, he spoke, revealing his own real and the natural might. Pray do not take offense, my lord. It is if I tell you that Bharata had proved to me not a little. After all, how long shall I endure this and restrain my patience when my Lord yourself is with me and the bow in my hand? A Kshatriya warrior by caste and born in the race of the Raghu, I am known throughout the world as a servant of the Sri Rama yourself. How then can I put up with such insult? What is so low as the dust or a road? But if you were to kick it up, it would rise to your head. As he rose and with joined palms asked leave to meet Bharta in an encounter, it seemed as if the heroic sentiment itself had awoke from the sleep. Binding up the matted locks on the heads and fastening the quiver to his waist, he strung his bow and took an arrow in his hand. Let me distinguish myself as a servant of Sri Rama today and teach Bharta a lesson in a battle. Reaping the fruit of their contempt for the Sri Rama, let the two brothers sleep on the couch of the battlefield. It is well that the whole host has collected at one place. I shall therefore give vent to my past anger. Even as lion, the king of the beasts, tears to pieces a heart of the elephant, or just as a hawk clutches and carries off a lark, so shall I lightly overthrow on the field Bharata as well as his younger brother Shatrugna and all their hosts. Even if Lord Shankara come to his aid, I swear by Sri Rama that I will give him a battle. Sri Rama, Sri Rama. Seeing Lakshmana speak with such a vehemency and fury, and hearing his solemn oath, all the swears trembled with fears, while their rulers were anxious to flee away in panic. The world was seized with terror, and voice was heard in the air extolling the enormous strength of the Lakshmana's arm. Who can tell, dear child, nay, whoever knows your might and the glory? But before doing anything, one must judge whether it is right or wrong. Then everyone would approve of it. They would who act impulsively and repent afterwards are anything but wise, so declares the Vedas and the Sikhs. On hearing this voice from the heaven, Lakshmana felt abashed, but both Sri Ram and Sita greeted him and said, "What you have said, dear Lakshmana, is sound wisdom. The intoxication of kingly power is the worst of all, but of those rulers who have tasted it, they alone lost their head who have never waited on an assembly of saints. As for Bharata, I tell you, Lakshmana, in the whole of the God creation, I have never seen or heard of anyone so good as he. Bharata would never be intoxicated with the sovereign power, even if he had attained to the position of Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva. What can a few drops of Kaji even split the ocean of milk? Darkness may swallow the midday sun, and sooner may the heavens be absorbed into the cloud, or the jar-born sage Agastya, who is stated to have drunk of the ocean in the single draught, be drowned in the water collected in the cow's footprint. Nay, the earth may abandon its natural forbearance, and Mount Meru be blown away with the puff of the mind discharged from the mouth of the mosquito. Is blown away by the puff of the wind discharged from the mouth of the mosquito. But Bharata will never be intoxicated by the kingly power, O brother. Lakshmana, I swear by you as well as by your father that there is no brother so good and innocent as Bharata. God, dear brother, creates the world by mixing the milk of goodness with the water of the evil. Why Bharta is a swan born in the lake of the solar rays that has shifted goodness from the evil, choosing the milk of goodness and discarding the water of the evil. He has illuminated the world by his glory, even as the Lord of Raghu extolled Bharata's virtue, amiability, and the noble disposition. He was drowned in the ocean of love. On hearing the speech of Sri Rama, the chief of the Raghu line, and seeing his affection to Bharata, all the gods were full of applause and said, "Who else is such a gracious Lord as Sri Rama?" Had Bharata not been born into the world, who on this earth who would champion the cause of virtue in its entirety? Who else than you, O Lord of the Raghu, can know Bharata's good qualities which are unapproachable even to the rays of the birds? On hearing the words of the gods, Lakshmana, Shriram and Sita were more delighted than words can tell. There Bharata with all his host bathed in the Sakar's Mandakini, then leaving all the people on the riverside and taking permission of his mother's preceptor, the sake of Vashishta and the minister Sumantra, he proceeded to the spots where Sita and the Sri Rama were, taking the Nishada chief and his younger brother with him. As he thought of what his mothers had done, he felt diffidence and formed ill conjectures of every kind in his mind. God forbid that Sri Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita leave the place on hearing my name and shift to some other place, taking me to be accompanied by a mother. Nothing that he might do would be too much, but looking to his own self, I am sure he will forgive my faults and receive me kindly. Whether he shun me as for possessing a black heart or welcome me as his own servant, my only refugee are Sri Rama's shoes. He is really a noble master, while the whole blame lies with his servant myself. The only being deserving of fame is the word are the chatka birds and the fish who are clever in keeping ever fresh their vows of fidelity and love. Evolving these thoughts in his mind, he went on his journey, his whole body rendered powerless by diffidence and affection. The sinful act of his mother Keke dragged him back as if were while the strength of the devotion pressed him forward. Foremost among the resolute as he was, whenever he thought of the Sri Rama's good nature, his feet moved quickly along the way. Bharta's gate at the time resembles the movement of the waterfly carries along a stream. Seeing Bharta's anxiety and affection at the moment, the Nishada chief forget all about himself. Auspicious moments occurs in the Nishada chief after hearing of and reflecting on them said, anxiety will pass away, giving place to delight, but in the end there will be sorrow. Bharata knew every word of his servant's Guha to be true, and proceeding further, he drew near to the hermitage. When he saw the forest and the mountain range, he was glad as a hungry man on getting excellent food. Just as a people tormented by the fear of the calamity and afflicted by threefold troubled as well as by the influence of the evil stars and by Festlin feel happy on migrating to the well-governed and the prosperous country. Bharata too had similar feeling. The natural wealth of the forest grew while Sri Ramas lived there, even as the people rejoiced on securing a good king. The charming forest was the scratch realms referred to here. Discretion was the king who ruled over it, while Dispassion was his counselor. Likewise, the five niyamas and the five uh, discretion was the king who ruled over it. The Dispassion was his counselor. Discretion was the king, and discretion was the king. Discretion was the king. Dispassion was the counselor. Dispassion was the counselor. Likewise, the five yamas and the five niyamas constitutes the champions of the realms. Mount Chitrakuta stood of its capital, while peace and the good understanding represented the virtuous and the lovely queens. In this way, good king was completed in all the limbs of the good states, and depending as he did on Sri Rama's feet, his heart was full of zeal. Having conquered King Delusion with all his host, King Discretion had undisputed sway in his capital, and joy, prosperity, and plenty regained everywhere. The numerous hermit habitations in the forest regions were like so many towns, cities, villages, and the hamlets comprising to the king dominion. The many birds of the various colors and the beasts of the different varieties constitute his countless subjects. The hare, elephants, lions, tigers, boar, buffaloes, and the bulls represented a sight which attracted admiration, shedding their national animosity. They roamed about together like an army complete in all its four limbs. Rills of water flowed and mud elephants stumbled. Their noise resembled of the being caterpillar of the various kinds. Chakrakas, chakoras, chatkas, parrots and cuckoos and swan made delightful and the merry concert. Swarm of bees hummed and peacock danced which showed, as it were, that there was universal rejoicing in that prosperous kingdom. Creepers, trees, and the blade of grass alike were blossom and bore fruit. The entire community thus wore a festival and a delightful appearance. Beholding the beauty of Sri Rama's hill, Chitrakuta, Bharta's heart overflowed with love, even as an ascetic who has reaped the fruit of his penance, rejoicing on the completion of his vows. Pause 20 for the 30 days recitation. Pause 5 for the 9 days recitation. Shri Ramayana. Bharata and his party took a dip into the Triveni, the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, the chief of the sacred space, and bowed their head to the Sikh Bharadwaja. Bharata reverently received his order and blessing and protesting himself made much supplications. Accompanied by the expert guides and taking the whole host along with him, he proceeded on his journey with his the thought directed toward Chitrakuta. Holding Sri Rama's friend Guha by the hand, he walked along like a very incarnation of love. By expert taking the whole host along with him, uh, Vata and his party took a dip into the Triveni, the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. The chief of the sacred place and bowed their head to the Sikh Bharadwaja. Bharata reverently received his order and blessings, and protesting himself made much supplication. Accompanied by the expert guide and taking the whole host along with him, he proceeded on his journey with the thought directed toward Chitrakuta. Holding Sri Rama's friend Goha by the hand, he walked along like a very incarnation of love. He had no shoes and no umbrella over his head, and his love, self discipline, austerity, and piety were unfazed. He asked his friend Goha to give an account of the wandering of Lakshmana, Sri Rama, and Sita, while Goha narrated the same in soft accent. When he saw the spot where Sri Rama had rested and the trees under which he had halted, the emotion within his breast could not be repressed. The god who beheld his condition rained on flower, the earth grew soft and the road became pleasant. The cloud afforded him shade all along and delightful and the excellent breeze kept blowing. The journey was not so agreeable to Sri Rama as it proved to be for Bharata. The numberless being both animate and inanimate, they saw the Lord or were seen by the Lord, in their turn had been rendered fit for the highest estate. The sight of the Bharata now finally rid them of the disease of the transmigration. This was no great thing for Bharata, whom Sri Rama ever cherished in his heart. Even they would utter the name of Rama only once in this world, not only reach of others show themselves, but are also name of Rama only once in the show, but are also able to take others across. As for Bharata, he is dearly loved by Sri Rama, and his younger brother too. No wonder then the journey should be delightful to him. Delightful to Journey should be delightful to Sri Ramayana. Siddhas, a class of the celestial beings, sent and the great six observed thus and rejoiced at heart to behold Bharta. Indra, the chief of the god, was filled with anxiety when he saw Bharta's power. The world is the good for the good and wild for the wild, he said to his preceptor, the sage Brahaspati. Something must be done, my lord, to prevent the meeting between Rama and Bharta. Sri Rama is scrupulous by nature and is won by the love, while Bharata is scrupulous. What do you mean by the scrupulous by the nature and won by the love? Scrupulous by the nature and scrupulous. Sri Rama is the scrupulous by nature and won by the love won by the love. Scrupulous by nature and won by the scrupulous. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. Sri Rama is scrupulous by nature and won by the love. Sri Rama, remedial measure. Scrupulous by Sri Rama is scrupulous by nature and won by the love, while Bharata is an ocean of affection. What was already been accomplished thus threatened to be undone. Therefore, finding out some stratagem, let us use the remedial measures. Hearing his words, the preceptor of the god smiled and realized that though endowed with the thousand eyes, Indra was fully blind, lacked discriminate means, what do you mean by the discriminate? Attentive to very attentive for a nature. Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama, Shri Rama. Shri Rama, 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 Shri Rama. Hearing these words, the god smiled and realized that highly attentive to the detail, says the scrupulous by nature, highly attentive for the details. Scrupulous by nature, highly attentive for the details. Highly attentive for the detail is called the scrupulous. Highly attentive for the detail is called the scrupulous. Highly attentive for the detail is called the scrupulous. So hearing highly attentive for the detail is called the scrupulous. Highly attentive for the detail is called the hearing the words of the preceptor. God smiled and realized, endowed with the scrupulous. Sri Rama is scrupulous. Scrupulous means, what do you mean by the scrupulous? Scrupulous means scrupulous is characterized of guilt. A careful, thorough, and extremely attentive to detail. Careful, thorough, and extremely attentive to details. The scrupulous. Careful, thorough, and extremely attentive to the detail is called the scrupulous. Careful, thorough, very concerned to avoid doing wrong. Careful, thorough, and extremely attentive to the detail is called the scrupulous by nature. Scrupulous by nature and one by the law. Nature and one. One means past, one by the law. While Bharta is an ocean of affection, what has already been accomplished thus threatened to be undone. Sri Rama is scrupulous by nature and is won by love, while Bharta is an ocean of affection. Affection means a gentle feeling of fondness or liking, the action or process of affecting or being affected. A gentle feeling of fondness, love, or liking. A gentle feeling of liking, fondness, love, and liking. The gentle feeling, affection is properly used to denote a feeling or type of love. The gentle feeling of fondness, affection. What has already been accomplished thus threatened to be undone. Therefore, finding out some stratagem. Stratagem means a plan or a scheme especially are used to outwit an opponent and achieve an end. A plan or scheme used to outwit an opponent and achieve the end is called the stratagem. Stratagem. A stratagem means the artifice or trick in a war for deceiving and outwitting the enemy. It is called the stratagem. The artifice or trick in a war for deceiving and outwitting the enemy is called the stratagem. The artificer trick in a war for deceiving and outrighting the enemy is called the stratagem. The artifice means clever or cunning device or expedients, especially used to trick or deceive others. Clever or cunning device or expedient, especially used to trick or deceive others, is called the artificer. What is artificer? Clever and tricky device of someone. Clever and tricky. Artifice means clever and tricky used to artifice. Clever and tricky device or trick in a war for deceiving and outwitting the enemy. A cleverly contrived trick or scheme for gaining an end. Cleverly contrived trick or scheme to gaining an end is called the artifice stratagem. Finding out some stratagem. Finding out some stratagem. Let us use is a remedial measures. Finding out a stratagem. Remedial means giving or intended as a remedy or cure. Remedial measures. Remedial means serving to raise or adjust something to some standard or a proper condition is called a remedial. Serving to raise or adjust something to some standard or proper condition is called a remedial. Serving to raise or adjust something to some standard or proper conditions. Serving to adjust something to some standard. Adjust something to some standard is called remedial. Adjust something to some standard is called the remedial. Adjust something to some standard is called or proper condition is called the remedial. Proper condition is called the adjusting something to some standard or proper condition is called the remedial. Is called the remedial measures. Remedial means artificer. Measures. Measures means remedial measures means an adequate or due portion. An adequate or due portion is called the remedial measures. A moderate degree is called measures. Remedial measure. The dimension, capacity or amount of something by measuring is called the measures. The dimension, capacity or amount of something by measuring is called the measure. The dimension, capacity or amount of something by measuring and an estimate of what is to be expected. The dimension, capacity or amount of something by measuring is called the measure. So remedial measures. Hearing his words, the preceptor of the god smiled and realized that hearing his words, the preceptor of the god smiled and realized that though endowed with the thousand eyes, Indra was really blind, lacked discriminate. He said, if anyone practices deceptions on a devotee of Sri Rama, the Lord of Maya, it requires on the artificer himself. O King of God, last time we did something knowing that it had Sri Rama's tacit approval. Tacit means what do you mean? Tacit approval. Tacit. Tacit means understood or implied without being stated. 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 Tacit approval, but by resorting to some underhand means resorting. Resorting means resorting. Turn to the end. Turn to the end is called the resorting. Turn to the end. Resorting. Go often or a large number of. Go often in a large number. Resorting to some. Go often in large number of. Go often in large. Resorting to some underhand means underhand. Underhand means what do you mean? Underhand. Underhand means acting in the secret in dishonest way. Acting in hand in secret and dishonest way. Acting in hand secret and dishonest way. Give or mark by the cheating and deception. Give to mark by cheating and deception is called the underhand. Give one and a mark by the cheating and deception is called the underhand. Deceitful. Underhand means under. Give or mark by the cheating or deception is called the underhand. Give in a mark of cheating or deception in clandestine manner, in a quiet or unobtrusive manner, with a underhand motion, in a quiet, done so evade notice, done so as to evade, make with a hand brought forward and up from the below the shoulder level, underhand. Underhand means this time. This time we are sure to meet with disaster. Listen, underhand means, but by resorting to some underhand means this time we are sure to meet with disaster. Listen, O Lord of the God, it is Sri Rama's nature not to be angry at any offense against himself, but he who sins against his devotees surely consumes in the fire of his wrath. The story is well known both in the world as well as Vedas. The Sikh Durvasa knows this glorious trait of the Sri Rama's character. Glorious trait. Glorious means having worthy or of bring fame or admiration. Having worthy bring fame or admiration. Having worthy bring fame or admiration is called the glory. Glory being fame or admiration is called the glory. Being fame and admiration is called the glory. Being fame and admiration is called the glory. Being fame and admiration is called the glory. Who is there who loves Rama and Bharta's love? One repeats Rama's name where Rama repeats name of Bharta. Never harbor in your mind, O Lord of the immortals, even the thought of frustrating the purpose of devotee of Sri Rama, chief of Raghunayan, for the same will bring you infamy in this world, sorrow in the next, and series of woes in your day-to-day life. Here advertise, O King of the gods, a devotee is supremely dear to Sri Rama. He is gratified through service rendered to his devotee and bear great enmity to those who are hostile to them, and bears great enmity to those who hostile to them. Even though the Lord is alike to all, without either love or anger, and receives neither sin or nor virtue, neither merit or nor demerit, and even though he has made fate the ruling factor in this world, so that one reaps what one sows, yet according as one possesses the heart of the devotee or an unbeliever, he appears to be impartial or hostile in his dealing. Devotee heart of the As one possesses the heart of the devotee or an unbeliever, he appears to impartial to hostile in his dealing. Though devoid of attributes, unattached, free from right, and ever unchanged, Sri Rama has assumed a form of attributes yielding to love of his devotee. Sri Rama has ever respected the wishes of his devotee. The Vedas and the Puranas, as well as saints and the gods, can be a testimony to this. Bearing this in mind, give us perversity and cherish ideal love for the Bharta's feet. Sri Rama's devotees are actively engaging, doing good to others, shares the sorrow of others, and are compassionate by the nature. And Bharta is the very key jewel of his devotee. Therefore, be do not afraid of him, O ruler of the god. The Lord is true to his words and the friend of the gods, while Bhartas obeys Sri Rama's orders. You are feeling uneasy only because you are dominated by the self-interest. Bharta is not to blame at all. It is your ignorance which is responsible for your uneasiness. It is your ignorance that is responsible for your uneasiness. Ignorance. What do you mean by the ignorance? Ignorance that is responsible for your uneasiness. Ignorance. Ignorance means the state of fact of being ignorant, lack of knowledge, education, or awareness. Lack of knowledge, education, and awareness. Lack of knowledge, education, or awareness is called the ignorance. Lack of knowledge, education, or awareness is called the ignorance. Lack of knowledge and lack of knowledge is called the awareness is called the ignorance. It is your ignorance which is responsible for your uneasiness. The chief of the god Indra was overjoyed at heart to hear these valuable words of the heavenly preceptor, and his deception of the spirits was gone. The Lord of Celestial therefore rained down flowers and gladly began to extol Bharta's noble disposition. In this way, Bharta went on his way, while Sikhs and the Siddhas were filled with envy at the sight of his condition. Whenever he heaved a long sigh with the word Rama on his lips, it seemed as if love overflowed on all sides. Even adamants and the stone melted at his words. The love of even adamant and stones melted at his words. Adamant and the stones melted at his words. The love of the citizens was beyond description. Halting at one place on the sides, the party arrived on the bank of the Yamuna, and Bharta's eyes were filled with tears to gaze on its dark water, which reminded him the Sri Rama's swarthy form. At the sight of the lovely stream that possessed the same hue as the person of the Sri Rama, the chief of the Raghuline, Bharta and his party were plunged into the ocean of grief on account of separation from Sri Rama and were saved from drowning only by boarding the bark of discretion. Discretion means good judgment. Discretion. That day they halted on the bank of the Yamuna. Everyone was provided with the comforts according to the occasion. Sri Ramayana. Pause.